Sure, sure. Thanks, Paul. So let me take this up into two parts. Paul, I recall you also asked this question on use cases, which I mentioned that let's first discuss on what is the ASM. We'll come back to the use cases. So let's divide this into two parts. One is the use cases, and the second part is the tools, techniques, and procedures. So when it comes to the use cases, there are a few key use cases which EASM tool solves. So one is the asset inventory. And today, asset inventory has become a major challenge. Of course, EASM cannot do the internal assets. It can only do the external asset inventory. And for internal asset inventory, you have other set of tools. So asset inventory is one use case. Second use case is shadow IT discovery, discovering those unknown unknowns in your asset inventory. Now, when it comes to shadow IT, there are multiple tools which can help you in shadow IT. One is like the CASB kind of tools. The CASB tools can find out shadow IT in terms of what kind of applications are being used by the employees of an organization, which is not known to the IT team. But the CASB tools cannot find out a shadow IT of the kind where marketing created a new database somewhere while working with a third-party vendor, because that needs scanning the internet. Whereas CASB only scans the traffic which is coming out of your network. CASB does not scan all the internet assets, right? Whereas EASM scans all internet assets. So shadow IT, but of a different flavor, not of the flavor of CASB. So CASB and EASM solves this in a very complementary manner. What CASB does, EASM doesn't do. What EASM does, CASB doesn't do. So shadow IT is the other. The third use case is SOC augmentation. So you have today, imagine like so many kind of alerts which are coming up, and we all know that SOC has this challenge in terms of which one should I act upon. That's a very hard challenge, right? So if EASM can feed this information to you, here is a new database that has gone online, which is misconfigured or runs a old version of a database, then any ping or port scan that comes there, you take it at a high priority. Whereas a normal ping, you don't take it at a high priority, right? So the intelligence coming from EASM could help the SOC. The fourth use case could also be where EASM augments threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is more about actors and their TTPs for the broad industry level. How can you make it pinpointed to a specific, like how that threat intelligence, that actor pose a risk for your organization? If you can correlate that with your attack surface and the risk, then you can make it more actionable. So augmenting TI will be another. Augmenting vulnerability management program is another use case, because if you don't know the assets, you can't put them in under the vulnerability management program, right? If you don't know that here is a pre-production system which is out there online and has got critical data, obviously you can't take any step related to that. So it also augments the vulnerability management program. It also augments red and blue teaming, because EASM does the first part, which is the reconnaissance, and then also the other set of tools EASM are also coming up, which are like the continuous automated red teaming tools, etc. So that also augments red teaming capability. So red teaming, blue teaming, or purple teaming, augmenting that as a capability. Control effectiveness testing as a part of that, that's another. So these are some 6-7 key use cases. So Paul, this is kind of in continuation to your previous question. So let me next move to the second question which you mentioned, which is about the tools, techniques, and procedures. So suppose you have to, or you want to build EASM capability. How do you get started with that? I mean, obviously there are multiple tools out there in the industry, and it is maturing. Red teaming is getting combined, etc. All those things. But let me give you a kind of share some of those options which are out there, which could also be part of, suppose, picking up open source tools. So let me start with open source tools, what you can do with open source tools. And I will also talk about later on the other technologies which are out there available. So if you look at EASM, the primary capability is nothing but reconnaissance, right? And if you find out, or if you try to find out the reconnaissance tools which are out there, if you just try out, do a Google search, you will find more than 500 such kind of reconnaissance tools which are out there, which can help you to discover various types of assets, which can help you to do subdomain discovery, etc., etc. So there are, I'm not naming all these tools. Largely, these are various small tools which you can tie it together, string it together, and use it, or somebody, a consultant, could use it. So you can use these reconnaissance tools, but these tools are not good enough. Along with the reconnaissance tools, you also need a lot of data. Like, for example, you need the IP whois information of the entire globe. Then you will be able to pinpoint your assets in a more accurate, manner. So you also need to find out get all this whois information, the domain registration details. Now these data are, unfortunately, you can't get everything for free. So some of this data you have to buy. You need dark web information, which could also be utilized as a part of reconnaissance. So there are all these data which is out there which you need. Now the next part is using these tools and this data. You may initially just focus on open source intelligence. Don't buy any kind of data which is proprietary or which companies are selling. So I think that there's a good start where you can start with all these open source tools and open source intelligence data or publicly available data, and build an initial reconnaissance capability. And using that capability, you can then do it a few times, depending on how big your organization is. You can do it monthly or quarterly, etc., etc. So I would say that's the level 1 maturity, which you can get there using open source tools and open source intelligence. The next part is where you move to something which is enterprise grade automated tools which are out there, etc. And there are this set of companies which has invested in terms of buying this data, creating their own tools, doing that automation, which can now help you to do it on a regular basis. So if you look at these tools, you can start with open source tools, then gradually move to these enterprise grade tools. You can start with your internal team. If you could, you can go to consultants and ask them to do, or you can rely on these software as a service options. So there are right now various types of options, and a good way to kind of find out this information and knowledge would be, the keyword is reconnaissance rather than external attack surface management. So EASM is more of the market name, but if you want to find out the technical tools and all this stuff, I mean, go with the word recon. And interestingly, DEF CON used to do this recon village for quite a few years. They did it. Now, obviously, due to pandemic, etc., I don't know what's the state this year. So you will find a lot of interesting talks at DEF CON on reconnaissance techniques. Check out what all things happened at Recon Village. Check out those talks, etc. So that's a good start. And then whenever you want to scale the program, etc., go for these tools which are out there available. And these tools also does the internet-wide scanning of every single IP address, collect those data, index it, and stuff like that. So these are some tools and techniques and procedures which I would highlight.